Record to the very nice. I might have done it right. Um, so the plan for today is I have this beautiful presentation that I've worked on for days, and hopefully everyone can see it. If you can't see the New Mexico Arts FY25 mini grants title screen up, please let me know. But this is what we're going to be starting with. And I'll run through the presentation. If you have questions, you can either jump in. I might be able to see your questions. I have the chat open, so I think I can see that. Or we'll have time at the end for conversation, questions, and hopefully I'll have some answers for you as well. But um, here we go. We'll get started. So welcome to the FY25 mini grants presentation. This is our third cycle of mini grants. So we're starting to hit a stride. We've funded we've funded about 16 in the past, 8 on each cycle, some maybe 9 on the first cycle. We have funding for 10 this particular cycle, FY25. So that's what we are looking to give out. That's about $25,000 spread out in $2,500 increments. But let's move on to our little slide. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to have images from past recipients, just to kind of give you a little flavor and some visual interest, because otherwise it's just words. But speaking of Ghost Ranch and Joanne, this is a great weekend that they had last year that we funded. Actually, I think it was this year, 2024, but a great weekend. So some of the activities. So the arts in the military program goals, and this is kind of what we frame the whole mini grants around. There are 2 main goals, and as you can see, one is to create more opportunities for military and veteran audiences. And just to kind of put a finer point on that, you can see some of the words, but it's not only just for veterans, but it's also active duty servicemen, service people, I should say, and reservists. National Guard also is a part of this military connected audiences, which we might use in a broader sense. Also their families and So that is a good thing. And new this year is the advance review. And trying to summarize advance review, it's sort of an early application. You put in as much information about your project as possible. You submit it to the staff here, mostly me, and we will give you feedback on your grant. So whether it's eligible cost or ineligible cost, whether you're eligible or not as an organization, and if your concept is hitting the mark. And one of the reasons that we're doing this is everyone puts time into these applications, and then you hear from us whether you can do it or not. And we were getting some applications in the prior 2 cycles that submitted, they did all this work and they submitted money for an ineligible expense. And at that point, it's sort of too late to have them redo their application because the deadline has passed. So what we're really trying to do is be very friendly and supportive of organizations that are making these applications. So the advanced review is sort of a take-home test, so to speak. You can fill in your ideas and submit them by September 23rd, which is kind of quick, but then we will give you feedback on those on that application, and then you can reapply. You can make whatever changes, corrections, take suggestions or not, and then resubmit it by the final deadline, which you'll see in the next slide will be November 8th. So that gives you almost all of October and plus to make changes or reformulate your applications. And we're kind of put in this heavy duty rule. If you don't submit an advance review, you won't qualify for the actual mini grant. So we want everyone who is new to submit an advance review application. If you're like Joanne from Ghost Ranch that's already been funded, you don't have to do an advance review because you've received funding, you know the application, especially if you're doing it for the same project next year. You don't have to do that advance review. But I will say, for those who have been funded in the past and you want to try out something new and you're not sure that it hits the mark, you can submit an advance review. Anyone or everyone can submit advance reviews. But if, like I said, if you've received a mini grant in the past and you're just extending your project another year, you can skip that. But advance reviews are good. You know, it gives us an opportunity to give you feedback to improve your application and really not, and this is not a heavy duty application, but, you know, not spend a lot of time on something that we know can't get funded because you want to buy a big cake for veterans. And that's one of the things you'll see is we cannot fund food. The state doesn't allow us to fund food. There's somebody made a law about that. And so instead of spending all the time doing the application and that's your big project, we can head that off at the pass, get you to reformulate or rethink what you're doing and submit a better application. And you can ask me more questions about that as you like. This is another awardee from this past year. And again, I'm just kind of putting these for the different types of grants that we've given out and what people are doing. So this was a public radio show that interviewed Native veteran artists. So they had an interview and they did a demonstration as well. Some more details about the grant. This is a little bit different from other grants, and especially our own, in that we want you to request $2,500. We're not going to give you $500. We're not going to give you $2,000. If you meet the qualifications and your score is, you know, in the top 10, you'll get the full $2,500. So that's a little bit different than our normal funding route. We don't want you to request $500. Again, somebody did that last year and they didn't get any money because this is one of the rules that, you know, we ask you to follow. It's so much paperwork behind the scenes. It doesn't make sense for us to give out anything much smaller than a couple $1,000s. So that's a part of it as well. Another big thing for those of you that do grants, there are no matching funds required, but you can commit additional funds to an activity. So if you have a $5,000 project and you want $2,500 from us, you certainly can find other places and other sources to meet your total budget. So you don't just have to do a $2,500 project. You do a $5,000 project. We'll only fund $2,500, and you can commit additional funds from other sources. And again, selected proposals will receive the full $2,500. Project implementation. So project activities can start anytime after January of 2025, January 1st. There's an asterisk there. I'll get back to that. And you should have your activities completed by June 15th. So that's a 6-month window to do your projects. The asterisk means if we have your all your paperwork in, if you submit that all on time, and if state government works smoothly, that's a big if, you should be able to start your activity in January. I would recommend not planning on starting it January 1st. I wouldn't start it any sooner than January 15th. But maybe an exception can be made, and we can kind of work that out as we go through the process. But this is your window to complete your project. And likewise, the report will be due on June 15th. So I really don't recommend, doing a program in the morning and getting your paperwork in by the end of the day, kind of a thing. Give yourself some time. It's not an extensive final report, but there is some work to do. So we need to get that done by June 15th. So the criteria, how are we going to evaluate your application? Number one, we sort these out into 2 tracks. Will your project create new or additional opportunities for audiences, or is it a capacity building project? The second area is the feasibility of your activity within the timeline and your capacity. So if you're a one-person organization and you're trying to help every veteran in New Mexico, that probably will be on the lower end of feasibility. Number 3 is audience, participant, recruiting, and promotion strategies. And I will say from the feedback from the past 2 cycles, this tends to be the hardest part of every organization's projects that get funded. It's not the case if you build it, they will just appear, veterans and military connected audiences. It's challenging, and we are working on some ways to build a better network of information, but we've had probably at least 2 or 3 people in the past that have not been able to do the project the way they intended, because they thought if they just do an advertisement in the paper or on social media, that they'll fill a class of 20 people, veterans or military service people. So that is not the case, and it's a question that we ask you: how do you intend to find your audience and promote your project? And so you definitely need to put some thought into that. We do not have good contacts on any of the military bases. They are, they're literally a military base. It's a fort. It's hard to get in. We've had some email success, but if you want to partner with a military base for active duty service members or their families, it will be a challenge unless you know some people or you're willing to put some time and energy into making an inroad. I will say for this, within the past month or 2, we saw some evidence that they received our information via email. And one of the other projects that Arts in the Military does is something called Blue Star Museums, where active duty members get free admissions into museums. We wanted to get the word out. I went through all the PR email boxes of every base's websites and sent it. And lo and behold, I never got a response, but I did get a social media post where they recognized that they got that. So anyway, number 3 is a big one. Audience participation, recruiting and promotion is a big part of it. Another criteria for yours is the appropriateness of your budget. If your project is to do art classes for veterans and you have travel time and it doesn't have much of an explanation, obviously that doesn't really fit with the project that you're trying to do. So how your budget is in terms of, is it asking for the right things? Now you certainly can have, I mentioned cake before, if you're having a reception for an art exhibit and somebody else is paying for the cake, that's okay. You can have your cake and eat it too, but we can't pay for it, and we need to see other sources for your bigger project. And again, that's sort of the appropriateness of the budget. And then this is another one that's a little bit challenging for some organizations, and that's your plan for evaluation. How do you know that this project was successful? It's very easy, and I've been writing grants for a long time as well as looking at them, to do a project, and you ask yourself, did we really set out to, did we accomplish what we wanted to accomplish? And how do we know that we accomplished what we tried to do with this program? It gets the short end of the lollipop, fuzzy end of the lollipop in terms of our time, but and we don't need anything extravagant, but some kind of plan for how do you know if your project was successful. It'll go back to your goals that you have in your application. Again, we think of, just think broadly of the audiences. This is the Santa Fe Children's Museum, did a great project with their kids, and the Military Museum, Military History Museum, which is right next door. Proposal requirements. As I mentioned, the advance review deadline is September 23rd. You can submit something that is mostly form and application. If there are some details that you don't have all nailed down, that's okay. You can kind of notate that in your application, but try to give us as much of what you're trying to do as possible so we can give you feedback and really help you put forth the best application that you can. And then the final application deadline, so you'll have a chance to make the changes, is November 8th at 5 o'clock. And we won't allow people just to do a final application if they're new. The only exceptions are people who've already been funded organizations. And what does this application look like? So we might have done some good things with this, or we might not have. At the very basis, you can answer all the questions that we have in the call for proposals on a Word document or a Google document and submit it as a PDF, hopefully. We can take a Google document. And we want the maximum to be about 2 pages. We don't want a 20-page application for $2,500. We want to try to match and make this as accessible as we can, based on the amount of money that we have to give. So again, we don't want 20 pages. 2 pages is fine. We are trying something new this cycle, and that is both an online application with our new website. And with that, I think you will have to basically have it in a document, a Word document, and cut and paste it into our online form on our website for your application. It doesn't save from day to day, so you can't just work on one question one day and come back and it'll be there. You have to kind of all have it in your Word document and then cut and paste it and then submit it. Another option is a PDF billable application, which is if you have Adobe PDF applications, you can either type it directly into the form or do the cut and paste like I just mentioned, and then save it on your own computer, and then send me as an attachment this application form. Again, it's technology. We try to make it simpler and easier. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. So if you just want to type it. If you just want to, use your word processor and put it on a Word document and send it as an email and an attachment, that's perfectly fine. If you feel adventurous, you can try one of the other online forms. The very first question that we ask you, besides all your contact information, is your project creating new or additional opportunities, or is it a capacity project? And these are the questions that are on the application. They might be kind of small on your screen. We want your mission statement for your organization and a very brief summary of what you've either done in the past or what you currently do. Some of the arts organizations that are applying, we know what you do because you've already applied to us, but we got a lot of applications from more veteran-centered organizations that we don't know much about or anything about. So it really is helpful to not only have the mission statement from your organization, but also some things that you've done in the past, activities. Doesn't have to be everything, just brief summary. Again, I think I said it on the last page, or wrote it. There are character limits specifically for each answer on the online forms to keep you brief and concise. The next question is describe your project goals. So, hopefully you've thought about this a little bit and what are you trying to achieve with this particular project? And to try to have a sentence or two about the goals. We don't need 50 goals. We don't need even 3 goals. 2 goals are fine. 1 goal might even be better. But if you can kind of formulate that, because your measure of success will go back to your goal statement. The next question is, who is your primary audience? Who are you trying to serve with this program? Is it veterans? Is it disabled veterans? Is it active duty service members, or is it the children or the family of active duty? It can be the families of veterans. So there's a lot of, satellites to the connection of the military audience that you can serve, and just try to be as specific as you can. And once you've kind of identified who your primary audience is, again, this goes back to the criteria. How do you intend to reach that audience? And if you have existing relationships with military connected audiences, tell us a little bit about that. So if your organization has been doing programs with the veterans of foreign wars for a long time, and this is something new that you want to try, let us know that you already have a relationship, and that kind of tells the people who are reviewing the grant that this isn't just a let's throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. There are some connections that are already there that you're looking to build on. The next question is, what is the timeline for your planned activities and where will they take place? And so timeline is just as it is, what's the first thing that's going to happen? The second thing, we're not, tied to a specific date. It doesn't have to be January 15th at 3:30. We're going to do this, but some kind of this activity happens and then this one, a path. And then where they take place, is it in a park? Is it at a specific park? Is it at a specific veterans home? We don't need an address per se, just the location. That these activities could be your organization's facilities. That's all fine. Just kind of give us a clue to where that's happening. The next one is your key project artist or staff, and what their relevant experience is in related to the project. So hopefully that's kind of makes sense. If you have community partners, I had mentioned about the VFW or a veterans home, there's an opportunity to talk about it there, and what role are they going to play in your project. So again, we're just trying to connect what your ideas are, and do you have the people to make it happen? And then your budget and how the New Mexico Arts Funds will be used. Again, if you're having cake, who's going to pay for the cake, and make sure that it's not us. And we're going to go over some of the eligible expenses. It says above, it might be below, but we'll go over what's eligible and what's not eligible. And then the last one is how you measure success of your project. Another image. So types of activity, learning-based arts projects, capacity building projects, They can be new or they could be something that's ongoing, but they can't end before the submission of your application. So um, we can't fund things that have already happened in the past. If you have a monthly series of art classes for veterans and you want funding for February through April, that would be okay of 2025. Just some examples of learning-based arts activities, not limited to these two. If you have other things where you're imparting knowledge or skills, um, it would kind of fall under this category. Examples, Paseo project at a stone carving class. Great picture. Metalwork class. Capacity building projects. We recognize that not everybody has the background or the capacity to start serving military audiences. So we can, if you have a consultant that you know of or another organization, a mentor organization, this is an opportunity to kind of talk about that and to apply in this area of the funding, capacity building. If you want to work on a curriculum, do some research about maybe where your organization would like to start serving military audiences and you have no idea, you can kind of do some strategic research and development and even talk about or get some funding for program evaluation expenses. If there's a conference or some other professional development opportunities that make sense, this is again an opportunity. Some ideas or some areas that we can fund. Artistic, administrative, or technical fees. Those are people. Consultant or facilitator fees, supplies, marketing expenses, rental fees, artist travel fee. If you're bringing an artist to do a workshop for again, veterans or kids workshop, that's an acceptable expense. Otera Arts did a great project with our Veteran Arts Showcase in Alamogordo. Now, because we're state government, there's a lot of what we can't fund. And this is trickier and probably the font's small on your computer, but as I mentioned, events that have already happened are not eligible. Activities that are part of another organization's application, for instance, if you're getting money from us to do from our annual funding cycle, and you can't double dip, basically, was that the first thing. We can't fund organizations outside of the state of New Mexico. Direct aid to individuals. So we can't do scholarships. That's part of the statute that New Mexico has, the anti-donation clause, I think it's called. We can't do prizes or awards. So that was, if you're going to do something in this vein, we can fund some of the costs around whatever project it is, but these are some things that are important that we can't fund. There it is, projects that have already occurred, we can't fund that. Projects that are for credit, school, college, or university, and that's the primary purpose, we can't fund those. Projects whose main purpose is recreational, we can't fund birthday parties, roller skating parties, unless you talk about the social impact or the social community building that project is doing. Food, fundraising events, kind of explanatory. We can't fund grant writing or solicitation of gifts or donor appreciation programs. Another picture. Southwest Writers did a great literary anthology. I think there's 75 authors in this collection. Okay, deadlines. We mentioned this already, September 23rd. We'll say it one more time before the end of this presentation, and then your final application is November 8th. Again, the timeline, there's your deadlines again. We will let you know if you're going to get a mini grant from us by December 2nd. So that's your award notification date. You'll know. And then project activities, as I mentioned, January to June 15th. Again, I really recommend not doing it January 1st or 2nd or 3rd. But if it has to happen in mid-January or so, let us know in your application and we'll do everything we can do. Not everything is under the control of New Mexico Arts. There's a Department of Finance that plays a role in getting the money out, etc. And then last but not least, your final report and invoice will be due by June 15th. Don't forget to serve. Another example of funding. So resources from New Mexico Arts. We have a new website and a new web page. There's some information about some of the other things we do. I mentioned Blue Star Museums. So there's an opportunity to learn more about the organization. And then broadly speaking, these are some things to Google or look up for ideas and projects or perspectives. Creative Forces, the National Initiative for Arts and Health across the military. Armed Services Arts Partnership is an organization, I believe, out of Virginia. Veterans Art Project, Foundation for Art and Healing. So you can do broader Google searches. It's a growing field. The National Endowment for the Arts gave organization, or I should say state arts agencies like New Mexico Arts, money for arts in the military, I believe, before COVID, probably back 2017, 2018. So there's a history of programming from around the country. And then last, this is my contact information. I'm here to help. I want to make sure that all this money gets granted, and I want it to go to good places, and I want it to really serve, we all want it to serve our military veterans and their families and military connected audiences. So that is the end of the presentation. Yep, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, so does anybody have any questions that they'd like to voice out loud or put in the chat? I'll take them as I can get them. No questions? So if you think of something, you're always welcome to email me. Again, our website has my email address, and you probably have it through an email stuff. There's also our call for proposals, which is on the New Mexico Arts webpage under Arts in the Military. It's a 6-page document that has basically everything I just had in that presentation on paper. So that's helpful, and how to apply. Again, basically, we're trying these 2 new online ways, the online application on our website, a fillable PDF, but it gets emailed to my address, which is in the call for proposals. So it's just an email application. You don't have to submit it through our other grant portal for those of you who get money from us in other ways. Okay. So there's are a lot of new organizations here. I know Ghost Ranch, and I know I see Alexandra from Western New Mexico. We have done it before. If you didn't catch what I've said earlier, new organizations are required. Organizations that haven't been funded by us in the past for arts in the military are required to do an advanced review application, a pre-application, you might say, and then we give staff feedback, and then you can make changes and turn it in for your final application. Organizations like Ghost Ranch and Western New Mexico, if you're just kind of extending projects that you've already had funded, you don't have to do an advanced review. You can just give us a final application. If you're trying something new and you want feedback, please feel free to do an advanced application. I'm not seeing any questions. Does that mean there are no questions? All right. Well, we'll end this presentation. Eventually, it will get on our website, and we'll probably have the presentation, the PDF of the slideshow separately, so you don't have to listen to everything for an hour, half hour. And again, if there's any other questions, feel free to call or to email me. All right. All right, so I think this is going to end the recording. All right, thank you.